it's not something that coming just like this, to have a gathering, lectures, guests, the community with coming together to hear only about Aden and the surrounding. And hopefully we'll have an interesting day here in the lectures. I will start as a part of my lecture will be more with photos, but also about the Menachem Essa family, also known as the Benin family, but we're talking about the Menachem Essa. Benin was only one of the family.
Can you make it louder? Louder, yeah. Come here.
I will try. The Messa family was the leader of the community since the British occupation in 1839. They are descended of a family that lived in Aden also before the British occupation. And the first one, Menachem Essa, that you see here on the left side, that's not him, but this is a figure of an Adenite figure in the mid-19th century. He was the son of the great rabbi, the chief rabbi of Aden, that his name was Menachem Benin. He was the chief rabbi in 1780, 1820, before the British occupation. His son, Menachem Essa, the one that founded the family in Aden under the British rule, was in charge of the custom in the pre-British occupation, and later on he was became to be the head of the community. Nobody had an election back then in the community. He was a very powerful person, and he was the one that started with the family. The second one to the left is Benin, Menachem Essa. We'll talk about him later. His brother Yehuda, both son of Menachem. Selim was the fourth president of Nasi, of the community. He's the grandson of Menachem, son of Moshe. We won't bother you too much, but he's the nephew of Benin and Yehuda. The last one is Bento Messa. He's a grandson of Yehuda. He was the last chairman of the community till 1967. So we see a descendant of family that rule or gather or govern the community for 130 years. The very famous one was Benin. So Benin was basically started his rule after his father death in 1862, and the famous one that we know about him, that's the photo that is meeting Prince Albert, later Edward VIII, Prince of Wales, Edward VIII, right?
Sorry.
1921, we see the communities gathering in a school that was erected and founded by the brother of Benin, Yehuda, in 1912. The photo took place on Saturday. Basically, this is the age of the Jewish quarter. The prince is coming to Aden just for one day to see the colony. And we see all the men gathering over here just after the tefillah. And in the middle, we can see the nephew of Benin, Tov Moshe. He's my great-grandfather. So this is my connection with the name Goldsmith, with this family. This is an interesting item that I collect, but you see the coronation of Edward VIII, but he was never coronated. He resigned before, so this is a very interesting item. Benin got a couple of medals and documents certificate from the British colony for things that he did for the colony. So thank you, Chris, for finding the medals for us, and we present them at the museum today. So basically, these are two medals that if somebody can be with sharp eyes see on the left side of Benin on this cloth, you can see two medals. So these are the medals that Benin got. Benin erected and founded the Great Synagogue in Aden in 1901. So basically we can see how the family with their economic power could have been philanthropy for the community for all kind of aspect, and that's the basic of my lecture. So Benin is founding the Great Synagogue in 1901, and we'll see this is the first synagogue that they built, and later we'll see that they built 7 more synagogues. So this is one, is erecting the synagogue on top of another synagogue that his father built in 1850. The synagogue was boast more than 2,000 seats. There will be about 70 Sifrei Torah in Aron Kodesh in the Great Synagogue. So this is the Aron Kodesh. We can see how big the synagogue is. At the side of the synagogue, there was also the Yeshiva Torah Mitzvah in Aden. The synagogue was demolished completely in about year 2000 by the governor of Aden under the North Yemen. This is a Sefer Torah that Benin donated for his brother that died, Mansour. So look at the book. Basically, we have like example to Sifrei Torah, to the thick Sifrei Torah from Egypt or from Iraq. I think this is from Egypt, not from Iraq. This is our typical rimonim that whenever we'll see this kind of rimonim, this is Adenite rimonim, we won't see it in any other different synagogue or Sifrei Torah of other communities. This is a Sefer Torah that was donated by the nephew of Benin for their sister. Very typical the rimonim, and we'll see it in a lot of others. Another synagogue that was erected by this family in Aden, that's Sukkot Shalom. It was erected by Shalom Moshe, that's Salim synagogue, and this synagogue, we'll see the focus will be like Sephardic tradition. The big synagogue is more Adenite with kind of Yemenite roots. This synagogue will be completely a Sephardic synagogue in Aden, and we see how the communities transfer the roots from the Yemenite to the Sephardic, and basically we can call this community Sephardic community with basic origin Yemenite. This is the Sukkot Shalom synagogue. You can see some of the celebration in the synagogue. This is a photo from the 60s. These are 2 books that I just recently saw in Stanford Hill Synagogue. Both books were donated to the Sukkot Shalom Synagogue by Selim and his wife, Hanun. And look how the impact of the book. I think this is like Egyptian tradition for the thick of Sefer Torah. This is the book open with the scroll. Another synagogue was in Sheikh Othman, a small village next to Aden. It was built by Tov Menachem Essa. This is after the riots in 1947. A synagogue was built in Port Said. It was a big community in Port Said. The family had lots of buildings over there, property, and they built also a synagogue in 1912. Look at this big synagogue that was built in Port Said. This is a photo from the outside. Unfortunately, we don't have photos from the inside. Another synagogue was built in Addis Ababa. It still exists. Today it's owned by a different family. And you can look at the side. It's a blessing to Haile Selassie by the Menachem Mesa family. The Menachem Mesa family has lots of business, merchandise from Ethiopia till Aden, and they're calling the kings of coffee. So this is like one of it. This is the inside of the synagogue today. Look at this map. You see on the right side, you can see the mosque in the same area of the synagogue. The mosque in Addis Ababa in Benin Street, calling Benin Mosque. So basically we have the mosque also under the prominent Jew, and it's like walking distance of 2 minutes from the synagogue to the mosque. This is the last synagogue they built in Tel Aviv, called Yehuda Synagogue. It's in Neve Tzedek. Whoever is coming, this is also where the museum is being built. And we can see part of the Sefer Torah that inside the synagogue. This is the Sefer Torah that was donated by Yehuda Menachem Mesa. He was the one that founded the synagogue in Tel Aviv. So this is the Sefer Torah and also the Rimonim that I mentioned before. That's his big passport and his second wife. That's Yehuda, and Yehuda is building the school for boys, 1912, by his own money, and he's also funding the school for later, so he will donate 50,000 rupee in order to hold the school.
Rupee?
Rupee, 50,000 rupee.
Is it the
Aden was controlled by India, and that's why the money till 1937 was in rupee, even after. This is the refer how the Judah want to build a school. Is wants to call the school King George V, and is passing a letter to the governor in Aden how the school is going to protect, how the education is going, and the primary object of the school is the impact of religious. But also there will be limudei, today we are calling limudei liba, there will be also art, there will be also history, geography, English and Arabic. So basically in the school they will be taught 3 languages, Hebrew, English and Arabic. This is a small book of brachot that Judah is giving to the children of the school. I will jump over to Judah's son is bringing a teacher from Palestine in 1932 in order to teach Hebrew in the school that his father built. This is Salim, the 4th president. He's building the school for girls in 1928. And this is the building of the school that still exists today in Aden. And look at the big school, what it is doing. Before we built the school, children used to, women, the girls used to go to the nun to be taught in the nun, in the mission. And we can see also the Scott in Aden, 1928, the girls on the top of the roof of the school with the teacher that came from Palestine to teach Hebrew. So we'll see how this is the contact of the second teacher that coming, Ava Chayitman. So she's entitled to teach Hebrew. Some artifacts from the school later on. They're also building a school in Port Said. So think how this family is gathering and giving the power to the community by education or religion aspect. This is a youth with the Menachem Mesa, the brother of Salim in Port Said. But it's not only to build buildings, they're also giving the prayer books. So we see how they starting and published the Chimdat Yamim of Shabazi in 1884. They will publish it in Jerusalem. And later on, also the Nusachei Aden. So we have about 15 Sifrei Kodesh that they published in the name of Menachem Esa family. Most of them for the community under the Nusach Aden. So we can see Mincha Arvit, we can see Tfilat HaChodesh, we'll see Agadah Shel Pesach and so on. Sometimes also written handwriting book, but very rarely. They will be in charge of the collecting money for Jerusalem, for the poor people in Jerusalem. We can see a fragment of collecting money in Aden for Jerusalem, and the one that will sign down will be Menachem Moshe. They will control also the marriage in Aden. So the Pinkas HaNisuim, the Rishum of the Nisuim in Aden will be in their hand, and you can see the stamp underneath Menachem Esa. So basically, whatever happening in the community is under the wings of the Menachem Esa family, and it doesn't matter whether you're getting married or when you want to be buried. So this is a document that allowed the Menachem Esa family to be buried in the old cemetery in Aden, and it will be for the name of Benin and later for Judah and Salim and their nephew, and also for the wife and children, and the wife and the children after them. Later on in the 30s, Salim is also taking out a document and a permit for other members of the community, for the important one like the Sharia rabbis or other prominent people in the community. On the other hand, we can see like tombstone from the old cemetery in Aden. The cemetery doesn't exist anymore, but these are two tombstones of Benin and Judah. Look how modest they are. It's not like something big, it's not something out of enormous one that will write a lot about them. So we can see how they are very modest, one of the graveyard. It all started the force and magnificent power from trade. So these are like stamps from Aden of the Menachem Esa family company. Basically, they had trade from all over the country, from the world, from the state, from Abyssinia, from South Africa, from India, Japan. So we can see part of this stamp and power. This like the table in the commerce place. They're dealing as well with the Sasson family in India, so we can see the Bank of Sasson and also the checkbook of Tov. This is the house in Aden. In Aden itself, they own about, and I'm not accurate, more than 100 buildings. In Port Said, only 24 buildings. So this is like part of the Kushan of the family, one of the houses. This is the big house in Aden. They also had the orchard in Shechot Man. 2 minutes, I will finish. In Shechot Man, they're also letting the community to come and to celebrate days over there, so we can see a photo from the 60s. This is the buildings in Port Said. We're almost heading Shana Tova, so this is the Shana Tova from Menachem Esa family.